I feel like what happened to me was miraculous.
Miraculous indeed. Now, we normally don't report on one of our own, but we are telling the story about our own anchor, Susan Koeppen, because it could help save a life. And this story is so important to all of us here at Channel 11 that David Johnson wanted to be here on his day off to tell the story. David.
And I'm happy to do it. It's an honor to do it, not just because it's an amazing story. You'll see that with all sorts of twists and turns. It's a very important story. You may know or not that Susan suffered cardiac arrest while running in Shadyside back in 2011. She was saved by two med students who gave her CPR. Well, now, 11 years later, and only a mile from where Susan collapsed, she's part of a new story of heroism and survival.
Hi, how are you? Can I give you a hug?
Yeah.
This is a reunion of Mark and Susan, of cardiac arrest survivors, two people who beat the odds.
It's good to see you, and good to see that you're smiling and talking and walking and
I'm happy.
happy.
This reunion made possible thanks to a series of miracles and coincidences that are almost impossible to believe.
I feel like what happened to me was miraculous.
To learn what happened to Mark Sims, let's go back to July 13th. Mark was driving down Penn Avenue in the city of Pittsburgh, and Channel 11 news anchor Susan Koeppen was driving in the opposite direction.
And I saw this guy drifting through the intersection, and he drifted right by me, and I could tell immediately that something wasn't right.
Just after 11 a.m., as Mark was driving to help some friends, he suffered cardiac arrest behind the wheel.
I remember something saying to me, put your seatbelt on. And I did. And after that, I don't remember anything other than waking up in intensive care.
After drifting through one of the busiest intersections in Pittsburgh, Penn and Dallas Avenues in Point Breeze, Mark's car hopped the curb and hit a fence.
Crashed right here into the fence.
Susan, who witnessed the whole thing, jumped out of her car and ran across 2 lanes of traffic to check on Mark. But you just left your car in the street because you knew seconds mattered, I guess.
I really didn't think. I just did. I knew immediately that he was in cardiac arrest, and I popped his seatbelt, grabbed him under the armpits, and I just started dragging him out of his car. And at that point, I realized I need some help, so I yelled, whoever's behind me, grab his legs.
The person right behind Susan was Dustin Kowalczyk, who was making a delivery for Don's Appliances.
We got him out, laid him down flat on the street. Susan started doing the CPR.
Tell me your thoughts as you're watching all this take place.
I was scared. My adrenaline was pumping like crazy.
Dustin called 911 and Susan did chest compressions for several minutes right here in the road.
I didn't know what was going to happen to him, and I was scared for him. I didn't know what was wrong with him. I just knew that he needed CPR.
There's a good reason Susan knew exactly what to do. In 2011, she suffered cardiac arrest while running, and 2 medical students driving by saved her life with CPR.
I dropped dead a mile up the road from here, and somebody hopped out of their car and saved me. And now
you paid it forward.
Here we are 11 years later. I just was in the right place at the right time.
And as if this scene along Penn Avenue wasn't dramatic enough.
Well, I did not put your car in park. Have you heard this part of the story?
Not, I'm clueless.
At one point, Mark's car started to roll backwards off the curb.
I was directing traffic, and I heard Susan scream. The car was moving, and I looked back, and I hurried up, and I jumped in, and I threw the car in park. Fortunately, Susan took an injury and got her foot ran over in the process.
By the tire?
By the tire, yes. But she jumped into action and moved the guy out of the way so the guy wouldn't get hit.
But in the process, Susan's foot got trapped.
And the car hit me from behind, hit my leg, and then pinned my foot. And
underneath the tire?
My foot was underneath the tire. I think they pushed it off of my foot, and at that point, a police officer was right there, and he took over CPR.
An officer from Pittsburgh Zone 4 continued CPR until firefighters from Engine 17 arrived and continued working on Mark. Paramedics were there quickly. All of them got to the scene within just minutes. Statistics don't lie. They tell us that 90% of patients who suffer cardiac arrest outside of a hospital die. How important was what Susan and others did there at the scene?
It was monumental.
UPMC's Dr. Nicholas George was sent to the scene of Mark's cardiac arrest. That's EMS protocol, by the way, in Pittsburgh. As Susan and Dustin waited for word on Mark, Dr. George gave them the news. Mark was taken away in the ambulance alive.
I said, you know, today you guys definitely saved a life, and that's 100% true.
Dr. Ankur Doshi was there when the ambulance arrived at UPMC Presbyterian and Mark was brought in.
We know that layperson CPR triples someone's chance of going home to their family.
It's one of the lessons. Learn CPR and help in some way, right?
Yeah. The steps are actually real simple. Call 911, do CPR, keep doing it until someone comes.
Susan gave Mark that fighting chance. And in September, in a meeting at his house, she got to tell him the story of what happened to him that day.
So when you hear all that, what goes through your mind?
A miracle, angel. You're an angel, I mean.
Aw. I just did something.
Wow.
Mark's story is even more remarkable when you learn his family history. His dad was a mailman in the city of Pittsburgh.
Your dad passed away when you were
Like,
little,
yeah, 2nd or 3rd grade.
and he was in a mail truck
Yeah.
when he had a cardiac
yeah.
incident. Wow.
And remember Dustin, the man who called 911? He has his own heart story. In 2013, he suffered cardiac arrest and was saved in the ICU at UPMC Presbyterian.
I was put here, I was still here for a reason, to be able to lend a hand to help some guy in need.
Two strangers, both cardiac arrest survivors, put in the right place at the right time to help a guy in cardiac arrest. What are the chances?
Mark still wonders why this happened to him.
He didn't know that you were going to be famous after all.
Well, crying. 64 years old, tears running like a baby.
Aw.
I just find it unbelievable.
But he knows he was saved for a reason.
I've been dark places in my life, but what has happened and what's been going on has given me reason to believe that there's a brighter day. So appreciate today and have hope for tomorrow.
Oh.
And like I said, an amazing story. And Susan, you told me something when we were doing this story. First of all, kudos to you and everybody who helped out. God forbid you have cardiac arrest, but if you have to have cardiac arrest, where it happened to Mark is actually a good place, isn't it?
Yeah, the people in Pittsburgh are amazing, and we're talking about the bystanders who pulled over. There were people who were checking for a pulse, looking for breathing. I don't have their names, but thank you.
Yeah.
There were other people, pushed the car, and then the first responders in the city of Pittsburgh are absolutely amazing. They really saved his life. I mean, they were there in minutes, and we're talking about everyone from the 911 operator who was on it and ready to give me CPR instructions if I needed them, to the police, the firefighters, EMS, the doctors who came to the scene. Absolutely amazing.
And everybody working together. Mark is doing well right now.
Yeah.
And what about your foot? Because I remember you came in with a boot and everything.
It's fine. It wasn't broken. I have a little soft tissue damage. It's fine. It's healing.
And the thing about this, and we've talked a lot, before this story, that you were not even supposed to be there, which is an amazing part of the story.
I was playing tennis that morning, and I borrowed my friend's hat, and when I was leaving, I forgot to give it to her. So I turned around, I went back, walked in, gave her the hat, got back in my car. So that delayed me about 10 minutes. I would have already been home if it wasn't for that hat.
Well, it's important to note also, you performed hands-only CPR.
Right.
Talk about that.
A lot of people are afraid to give CPR. I don't know what to do. Am I going to do it wrong? Really, the only thing that I did was I locked my hands and my arms, and you just press as hard and as fast as you can right in the center of the chest. We never did breaths. We just did the compressions to keep the oxygen going, to keep his brain going, getting the oxygen to the brain. So don't be afraid. You're also covered under the Good Samaritan law. If you stop to help somebody, you just have to do something, because if you don't do something, they're going to die.
Yeah.
So doing something, even if you're doing it wrong, is better than nothing. And we do have a video on our website. It's a 1-minute video. It will teach you hands-only CPR. It's worth it.
And that is at the heart of this whole story, that everyone there was there for a reason, including you, Susan. We're glad to hear that you're doing well and that he is doing well. And we'll be right back after the break.